Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you are. On behalf of BOZAR and the Embassy of the United States of America to Belgium, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar with the two directors of the film Untitled USA, a film directed by Razi Jafri and Justin Feltman. My name is Juliette Duret, and I'm heading the film department at the Center for Fine Arts. Untitled USA is a film we are proposing to the Belgian audience within the slot USA on Film. With USA on Film, BOZAR and the American Embassy invite you to explore the diversity and richness of the independent film scene in the United States of America. The program aims to offer an immersive look at American society from various points of view, the climate emergency, the necessity of multiculturalism, the functioning of the democratic system, as well as the historical connections between the USA and Europe. We are here with the two directors. Hello, Razi. Hello, Justin. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hello.
It's an honor to be here.
Oh, it's our pleasure as well. So welcome to this BOZAR online screening and to this Q&A. So Razi, you are a Detroit-based documentary photographer and filmmaker. Your work focuses on religion, race, politics, immigration, and the changing cultural landscapes in America. Justin, you worked on several independent films as well as on several documentaries. You did produce short films, music videos, and a web series. So Untitled USA is a documentary exploring life and democracy in America's first Muslim majority city. It's a unique glimpse into this multicultural community. The film was selected officially for the American Film Showcase and was selected to the SXSW Film Festival, the Doc New York Film Festival, and the DOCSA in Sydney. So I have here my colleague Camilla Giladoni on my side for the Q&A. Camilla is working for the film department in BOZAR and is in charge of the slot USA on film. So let's dive into the conversation. Let's start the conversation and let's talk about your film. So of course, the first question, which I suppose it's the most logical question, would be, how did you come to the idea and to this project? Or did this documentary come together? Or did you start the project?
I can jump in here, Razi. Yeah. So I met Razi back in 2016 around the election, presidential election in the United States. I went to Michigan to work on a project about underrepresented voices in American democracy. And I connected with Razi as we kind of worked on covering the Muslim community in Southeast Michigan, which is where Hamtramck is located. And another town that I think internationally is more known is Dearborn, the birthplace or the headquarters for Ford Automotive. And it's also got a large Muslim community there as well. And after the election results came in, Razi and I sat down and asked ourselves, what do we do? What do we do with this? What does this moment really mean? And how can we kind of, speak to this moment? And we got along really well. We had a great working relationship, and we talked about Hamtramck, and we just immediately knew this is what we needed to do. Mm-hmm. And so we thought, how do we kind of, bring a story together? Local elections, always promising. And we found out the mayoral election was the next year. And so I pretty much said, here's my camera, start shooting. I'll see you in a couple months. And yeah, as soon as the election season started picking up, I moved to Hamtramck, and we just kind of shot anything we could get our hands on, anything that anyone would invite us to, whether that was, a big cultural event, or if that was just a small meeting amongst political strategists in town, or even just family dinners. Anything we could shoot, we shot.
And how do you work together? Or are you working together? It's your first project together?
Yeah, at the time we were both relatively new to filmmaking. Justin had quite a bit more experience than I did, and we had a fabulous working chemistry. And part of it was out of necessity. Justin lived in Washington D.C., and so he was out of town, and he left all of the equipment with me, and so. So I had to basically start, so
Okay.
yeah, so he would come back every few weeks, and then he moved there, as he mentioned, in July for the next 6 months as the election went on. And we worked really well together. We divided some of the interviews in terms of who would conduct them. We were both shooting. We did primarily, I think I would say, between the two of us, we did probably 90% of the cinematography for the film. And of course, when Justin was in town, I mean, he would do much more. And when he would leave town, then I would pick up on shooting.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we made it work.
Okay, and how did you get in touch with the people of ΦIlmmaker? I mean, how did you win the trust of the people? But considering that on one hand, but the citizen of ΦIlmmaker, actually they suffer from the media representation. They're exposed to this media representation, which is not, unfortunately, that's positive, as you show in the film. And on the other hand, so we see candidates that are actually in control of their image because they repeat their messages, their electoral promises. So I would like also to know if you can tell us a little bit more about how did you manage the balance between private and public image of the candidates, of the protagonist of the movie, of the film.
It's a great question, Camila. I'll start, and Justin, if you'd like to add something to it. I think especially for anybody who's watching right now that's interested in becoming a filmmaker or making a film, one of the big things that we really tried to focus on in the beginning was making connections with people, forging relationships with them, and spending time with them without the camera. So going to their, place of business, having coffee with them, spending time with them, and as you mentioned, the media representation about Hamtramck was very sensational and exaggerated in the media, and so there was a lot of mistrust in the community for filmmakers who are coming in or journalists that are coming in and to make work about Hamtramck. So I think the biggest thing for us, I had an advantage because I lived in Detroit at the time, and I knew people in Hamtramck already, some people, but I didn't know a lot of people. And I think being such a small city, it's very easy to introduce yourself to somebody. The mayor owns a vintage clothing store. If you go into the store, you can just say hello to the mayor. It's not like some big formal thing. So it was on some level, it was very easy, and then on other level, it was very difficult. It's very easy to get in touch with them, but then it's very difficult to earn the trust.
Yeah.
But over time, I think we were able to show that we were sincere about the project.
Yeah, I had not a similar question because it's not the same question, but it's going in the same line in a way that indeed you have in front of yourselves political, so they are playing with their own images, but also the film is tackling big topics of society, and you feel that it's very gentle, it's very generous in a way. You feel some tensions, but not a lot, and the film is globally quite heartwarming, quite nice. Is this the reality, or did you feel that your presence influenced the behavior of the political on the run, or not? Or were the people naturally open, and did you feel that your presence did influence the way they were?
Yeah,
because I was quite struck by all the gentleness that I was feeling, which was really natural. But at the same time, I was, is it the reality? Is it the reality that you did experience on the long term? That's what I mean, in a way.
Yeah, I think, to that point, I think that certain candidates, especially like in city hall meetings, there's going to be political differences. There's going to be debates. At times, it's going to get you know, a little bit more heated or tense. But those things are around things. I mean, I think the biggest issue in town hall was over trash contracts at the time we were filming. So who would take away the trash in the city? And so, you know, these are things that are legitimate discussions and legitimate concerns. But I think as far as, since we focused on the campaigns, I think that people were legitimately and earnestly doing some soul searching and trying to connect with voters and trying to connect to the different communities that live and exist there in those in the city. So I think, you know, it's not a very powerful job as far as, you know, you're not going to become president one day if you damn it. So, you know, some of the more I guess kind of serious allegations that some politicians may face, it doesn't have the same currency in Hamtramck. So I do think that the people who are running, you know, and we were covering and being around, I think we're sincerely trying to connect with different communities. There wasn't a lot of the things you may see in a statewide race where you try to play on the tensions between communities. I think that, especially in a place like Hamtramck, even though it's known as the first Muslim majority city, as far as the ethnic community, I think the largest may be Yemeni, but it's still like less than a third of the community is Yemeni. So if you want to win an office, you have to get the Polish vote, you have to get the Yemeni vote, you have to get the Bangladeshi vote. You can't pit communities. You have to earnestly earn votes from everyone.
And do you feel that Hamtramck is a model of inspiration of this multiculturalism? Is it's that multiculturalism? Do you think Hamtramck represents the future? What's the future of our democracy in this very fast society we live in?
Yeah, you know, Camila, this is a very big question that you're raising, and yeah, of course. I mean, you know, it's a big part of the reason why we're motivated to make this film, because, you know, Hamtramck in many ways is very unique in the United States, but in many ways it's also similar to other cities across the United States where you've had an influx of immigrants or migrants from different parts of the world, and it's completely shifted the culture and the demographics of that city. And not everything is perfect in Hamtramck. You know, we kind of alluded to some of those tensions with the call to prayer and some of the other issues that Hamtramck has faced over the decades. But at the same time, it is a reality that I think more and more we're facing in the United States as the demographics are shifting. And it's a reality actually in Europe as well that I think is becoming more and more true in many parts of Europe. And so we do see it as an example. Because as Justin was alluding to earlier, if somebody wants to be a successful politician or a community organizer or an activist, they have to engage with all of the communities that are there. And everybody has a right to be there, and everybody has a right to be involved in the democratic process.
It's remarkable, huh? In a way, it's really, wow. It's quite astonishing, to be honest, but it's very beautiful to see. But is there a specific reason why it's like this? It's because of the Amtrak is not that big, because the people are really fragile economically, or is it what? Because because the Polish roots are also important, that Amtrak has always been an immigrant city and then has always been with an open mind, or it's something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're touching on, it's a combination of some of those things. So one thing to think about is that despite there being so much diversity in Hamtramck, one of the things that unites the city is across class. So it's a working class city. It's working class, it's poor, it's low income. You know, so you don't have a huge class divide in a place like Hamtramck. And then also, you know, previously in previous generations, lots of people from different backgrounds worked in the same companies or the same factories. So if a factory were to close, They're not saying, oh, we're only going to fire or lay off the Polish people or the Bangladeshi people. Everybody's going to lose their job. And so I think there's a working class spirit that unites a place like Hamtramck. Also, one of the things you have to understand is the history of Detroit. There have been many cycles of boom and bust, economic boom and bust. And so when the major plants have closed in different cycles in the starting in really the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, you have cycles of people moving in and you have cycles of people moving out. So when the last big wave of the Polish people who were leaving in the 1980s, this created a population vacuum in Hamtramck. What allowed it to do is allowed Bangladeshis and Yemenis to move into Hamtramck from not just Bangladesh and Yemen and other parts of the world, but they also were moving there from places like Queens in New York, for example, because of the cost of living was cheaper. You can start a business there. You can actually buy a house and have property. And also because of marriage as well. People are marrying people from different parts of the country and they're moving in as well. And in fact, we know a couple of examples of somebody from Hamtramck that married somebody from New York and they ended up settling in Hamtramck, So it also has to do with the migration within the United States as well. And I think some of it is also practical, as we've been talking about, there has to be some type of unity in order to make the city function. Now, the last point I want to make is sometimes there's a dispute in the city or a tension or a debate that's taking place. Maybe it's about trash pickup, maybe it's about recycling, maybe it's about the roads being bad. But sometimes, when you're not from Hamtramck and you're from the outside, you can misconstrue that to be about something else. Like, why are they arguing so passionately? Is it about religion? Is it about race? And maybe it is, because we can't deny that that's playing a role in some of these city arguments that are taking place about trash or potholes or pollution or whatever, the funding the fire department. Sometimes that's one of the ingredients, as well. But it would be too much to read into it that, oh, they're fighting over, or there's a tension over race or religion. It's like any city has these issues across America, and any city across the world is, you're going to have debates in the city council meetings about who to give the contract to, to clean up the trash, things like that.
And just to give a context, the film is about the election campaign that took place in 2017. So the Trump presidency already was inaugurated in January 2017. We were already in the Trump era, which means tensions, a lot of pressure on the communities like Muslim communities. And were you there when were you already in Hamtramck when Trump won the election? Did you see, did this election change the feelings in the city? Voilà.
Yeah, so I think this is actually a really great question, and it sort of touches on the sort of nationwide activism that was starting to grow at the time. So one of the big things that touches to your question specifically are the series of anti-travel ban protests that were taking place at airports across the nation. I remember, because I was there in Detroit at the international airport in Detroit, there was a massive protest. And actually what ended up happening that day was that there were smaller protests in cities, and then everybody got into like caravans and they drove to the airport then. Hamtramck actually had a pretty large protest as well. And then people drove from Hamtramck to the airport to protest at the larger protest there. Of course, the Muslim community was one of the many communities that was targeted, in a discriminatory way. Of course, women, Mexicans, African Americans were also being targeted as well during that time. But Muslims were one of the communities that were really particularly targeted by the Trump administration. Mm-hmm. So of course, then when he comes into office, he starts enacting these policies. So there was a revival of or a growth of activism against Trump and against the new ban that was taking place. And that's actually started a motivation for many Muslim politicians, not just in Hamtramck, but all over the country, to get involved in politics. So we had people that were running for state representative, for US representative, US senators, governors. We had in the state of Michigan, we had a gentleman that ran for governor for the state of Michigan. And I believe that that was a direct result of the early part of the Trump presidency.
Yeah, I see.
And
Voilà, go on.
No, I just, so how is the new majority council now, and is there a change in policy in Amtrak since the last election? Is it, what are the priorities? Did the priorities change? Is the focus, did the focus change on what they wanted to bring or not?
You're saying after the 2017 election, how did things locally change? Well, I mean, obviously in the last year, as everyone has dealt with, this pandemic has definitely set the agenda for the city. I would say that's kind of been the major hurdle that they've addressed. At the time we were there, Hamtramck was under state receivership, which means that like the state of Michigan had to approve all the decisions locally because of, as Razi kind of talked about earlier, without the factories and kind of these larger businesses to pull from in Hamtramck, the city has kind of accumulated a lot of debt, and so the state kind of approved. And so post that election, they have the state removed themselves from that position. And so now the city has a little bit more independence over their own kind of decisions. So they've kind of, I think that's also been a big issue, is some people have been wanting to take massive budget cuts where others see those budget cuts towards things that could harm the city long term. As Razi, I think you kind of mentioned earlier, one debate locally was over the fire department, whether they should just kind of fold that into the police department and make it a public safety kind of a department. But others said, if we don't have the fire department, we don't have, you know, a big draw. So like, you know, the fire department is really well known and well liked in the city. And so, you know, these are kind of the tensions you usually see in the city, as Razi said. You can't simply chalk that up to race or, you know, religion, but, you know, sometimes you're like, well, maybe it exacerbates things. It's not a clean narrative. But yeah, these are the kind of the things that a lot of people in City Hall are debating, is these kinds of, how do we increase the revenues, reduce our costs to kind of put us on this next footing for the future. And obviously the pandemic does not help anyone locally with that kind of argument. And obviously, as a very large public health crisis, it presents a lot of new challenges to a city like this that is a working class city.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit to that, you know, one of the things that we sort of ask as a, almost like a rhetorical question, but also as a discussion question, is what does democracy look like in a Muslim majority city in the United States? And, you know, there's a lot of different answers to it, and there's a lot of great discussion that comes out of this question. But one of the things to realize after watching this film is that democracy in Hamtramck looks like democracy in any other city in America. You know, a lot of the topics that Justin just brought up, you know, whether you should merge the fire department and the, I mean, these are not sexy topics, you know, like we're not really talking about things that are like really sort of groundbreaking issues or controversial issues. They're just kind of like a lot of the mundane issues that any city around the world is dealing with: sewage issues, public safety, public health. I mean, I don't mean to, you know, put these issues down, but they are deeply, deeply important, but they're not as newsworthy as what I think the impression that people have of what a Muslim majority city would be like. You know, it's like we're actually all concerned with the same things, you know, and so it's one of the things that I wanted to just point out.
Yeah, one thing to go off that is we filmed every city council meeting, you know, and attended every city council meeting. And every now and then a news crew from a local channel or something would show up, and they'd be so bored because they wanted fireworks, they wanted tension, but what they're getting is, you know, trash contracts, water, the price of water in the city, kind of those kinds of topics. And yeah, they couldn't find the narrative they were looking for. It wasn't clean enough to kind of cut down to a 30-second segment.
And just come back to the film. How long did the making of the film took? And so from the connection to the city and the people until the final editing, and also if you can say, tell us a little bit about the screening you did with the people, with the protagonist of the film, and tell us a little bit more about the reaction of the protagonist to see the film.
Yeah, I can do this.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, we started basically the day after the 2016 presidential election, and we kind of wanted a whole year in Hamtramck. So we filmed all through 2017, from candidates declaring to all like the different festivals they have in town, like the Bangladeshi New Year, the Bangladeshi Mila Festival, Eid Festival, Labor Day Festival, all these. I could go on and on, and and through all the politics, and then we kind of ended our principal photography with the inauguration day, basically. So that's how the film ends, and then we do a few pickup shots here and there. Little things, do a few more interviews to get a little more information, or follow people around here and there for the next year and a half or so. And then we completed the film in 2019 after doing a few like test screenings at different places around in New York and in the Detroit area and in Chicago. And then we got the film. It was in South by Southwest. And a week before it premiered at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, the pandemic kind of hit America and it was canceled. And we're kind of left.
Yeah, so bad luck now. Bad luck for you, because I guess that it's not the same exchanging on a film like this through Zoom, I think, because it's I think for this kind of topics, it would have been nice for you to really exchange in public
Right.
screenings. Yeah, and I guess that this pandemic also stopped a bit, no, the distribution and the promotion of the film, or not? Or you don't have this impression?
I would say it slowed things. I think everyone was kind of trying to figure out what to do in this situation, whether that's for streamers or broadcasters or anything like that. I think everyone was kind of left with more questions than answers, and so it probably made people a little hesitant to kind of distribute. But we're here now. We're happy with it. We're going to bring the cast actually down to South by Southwest with us, the main subjects, and so that was going to be really cool to watch that with them. But when the film played at Doc NYC, we were able to give them tickets to stream it online, and so everyone was able to see it, which is really fantastic to finally be able to say, hey, thanks for letting us follow you around 3 years ago. Here's the film, and yeah, they seem to really enjoy it and find it worthwhile. And I think one thing we wanted to kind of show is that we absolutely love this city.
Really?
We enjoy this city. We love this city, and it was just an honor to be able to work with everybody in the film. But whether it was candidates or just citizens of Hamtramck, they were always so generous with their time. So it was nice to finally be able to kind of share it back to the city.
Yeah, but to be honest, if it happens in one day I'm in Detroit, I will definitely like to go to Amtrak, because I have the impression that your film is really a human film. It's very gentle and catchy and really intimate. The intimacy is there. So I really have the feeling that I was with them, that I got to know them, and those 5 or 4 main characters.
Yeah.
Karen, which I really like, and also Fadel, the younger.
Yeah.
but really, I would like to meet them.
Yeah.
So,
of course, you know, be our guest anytime you come. You know, please let us know.
I'm not sure I will come, but if it would
of course,
happen
of course.
that I'm there, I would definitely want to visit the city. And do you have other projects together, or a project, individual project?
Yeah, we're actually, Justin and I are working on our second film together. It's an archival and investigative documentary film about the killing of an American Imam in Yemen in 2011 by the Obama administration through a drone strike. So it explores kind of the war on terror and the media culture that was developing around the war on terror. So it's the first time in US history since the Civil War that a US citizen was hunted and killed without a trial or due process. And you know, eventually his 16-year-old son was killed as well. And again, also born US citizen. So it's a little bit of a different tone, you know, in terms of that film, and different style and format as well. But that's our second film together. And we've talked about other projects too. You know, I'm actually in graduate school now. I'm getting my MFA, and I'm working on a couple of films for my program and also outside of the program as well. I'm traveling to South Korea actually this summer to make a film about Yemeni refugees who came to South Korea between 2016 and 2018. And then Justin and I, we continuously talk about new project ideas.
And this film, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this film about the Yemeni immigrant to South Korea, is it, how do you say, un film de commande? How do you say this? Another, is it your own initiative, or is it, or you have been asked by your PBS or by your?
No. It's my own idea, my own initiative. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because how do you produce your film? How do you find the money, actually? Because in Europe, I'm not going to say that it's cool, but we have Film Fund. It's totally well organized. We have the European Community Union with the media program. We have national film funds. We have co-production treaty. We have TV. Well, so I know in the United States it's not the same. So
yeah, of course.
How did you do for Amtrak?
Justin, if you want to dive in, and then I'll explain more if there's need.
I was going to say, we kind of just had to start shooting, you know.
Okay, it was like this.
And applied for.
We had no money.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Not in the beginning, and then we were
There are grants, is how for at least
grants. Okay.
But we needed to get, you know, a sample together and everything like that. So as far as, you know, especially as first-time filmmakers, you know, it's our first feature film. We had to pretty much fund this for most of the year all by ourselves. The one nice thing is that, you know, Detroit is a little bit less expensive of a city. And so, you know, it was a little easier for us to kind of get away with that. You know, unlike say a New York City or an LA story, if that was based there, it would have been a lot tougher. But in Detroit, we were able to kind of just get by on our own funds for most of a year before Center for Asian American Media, which gets their funding through the Corporation for Public Broadcast. They were our first grant that we received, and then we got the Islamic Scholarship Fund. And because of those, we got the attention of like the Ford Foundation, who has
I've seen it.
Yeah. And they really like to invest in Detroit or in the Midwest. They really want to kind of get some of those more underrepresented voices within the US to kind of support those projects. And so they came in, and then towards the end, we got Doha Debates to help us kind of finish the film and really help with the educational rights for the film.
Really so I guess that for your second film together, it will be easier for you to find grants and no.
We hope.
We hope so. It's a very difficult landscape. Raising money for films is a very difficult landscape. I'm very lucky, you know, for my MFA program, my university is very generous, even during this pandemic timing. So I'm raising money through different departments. Korean Studies Department, we have a very well-established Korean Studies Department at the University of Michigan. And then my department, my own program, has a very generous international research project fund that's supporting this project. But that's a different route, you know, like student films versus, and I hope that it will go beyond a student film. It's not just a student film, but I'm raising the seed money to start the project using the university. And then I'm hoping that later on when I graduate, then I can, you know, get some additional funding to build on top of that. But certainly I think, you know, Justin and I are in a better position now to raise money for this project. It's also a much more global story. And so we're hoping that we'll be open to raising money from other foundations as well. And maybe some of the ones that rejected us before, now we've proven ourselves a little bit, you know, and so we'll get some additional funding, you know, as well that way. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think with this one, it would be a more controversial figure, Anwar al-Awlaki.
Yeah.
Because you know, his associations with Al-Qaeda towards the end, and as a recruiter, and so, you know, it will be one that maybe some of the funds that we got before wouldn't want it, but hopefully that opens us up to others. And you know, now that we've made a film, we can go to production companies. Which is another way a lot of people make their films is through just working with production companies.
Yeah.
So, hopefully.
This year is the new election in a new campaign, new election in Amtramck. So are you still in touch with the people? Are you going to do something with this new campaign? Voila.
Yeah, of course. So we have been working very closely with the Doha debates, which is a part of the Qatar Foundation, to develop an epilogue for the film. One of the things that we really wanted to do with the film was to create a educational and awareness campaign, an impact campaign around the film, so we can work with schools, libraries, theaters, and community centers. And actually now, not just in the United States, but all over the world, we want to work with them. And so we worked with two educators, two teachers to develop a curriculum for the film. So an educator in a school can use the film to have a discussion around it. And the epilogue is a series of, it's a short film, it'll be shorter, but kind of looking at what happened in the 4 years after. So we do reconnect with the candidates, and the characters from the film. So we're currently in production on the epilogue, and so that'll be available, and you know, we'd love to share that with you guys once it's available as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Do you want to add anything else? Juliet, do you have another question? Sorry.
I don't have any more questions. I just wanted to wish you all the best, and of course, let's stay in touch, because we will keep on working with and programming cinema, and also working with the Embassy of the United States to Belgium. So of course, feel free to exchange also with us. Would you see some films which could also be interesting for this slot, as we are exploring the United States in another way from different point of views? Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here, and we really appreciate you guys showing the film and working with us, and inviting us to be a part of this conversation. And of course, thank you to the theater and to your organization, and then of course the U.S. Embassy as well. Very much appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you for the generosity to share with us all the details.
Really nice.
Yeah.
Really nice to meet you. Yeah, very nice.
Okay.
So have a good day.
Thank you very much.
See you around.
See you
next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.